Hello, beloveds. It's me, Bevan. Welcome to Bevan, a femme over 40 and her friends podcast. I'm your host, Bevan. I've said my name 3 times. It's time to start the show. For those of you not watching this on YouTube or wherever you can watch this podcast, I'm cozy. It is officially cold weather here in the North Pole, and I'm in my full pastel cozy deadhead comfy thing that I made. And I'm at home. I'm not often at home when I record this podcast, and I'm at home right now. So it's me, my dancing bears. And I will tell you, it is November. I could have my holiday decor up at any moment, and I haven't yet decorated inside for the holidays. But I like to give myself the whole window of November to allow myself whatever decorating is going to happen. I'm one of those November 1st people. Um, but that's all right. There's so many people have so many arbitrary rules about how they do things, and I like to check in with my mental health. What does my mental health need in terms of decoration? What whimsy can I create? And really noticing that. Also, these times are really bonkers, and I just want to confirm for you if you too are feeling like, what's up with these bonkers times? Everything feels harder than ever. Yeah, sure does. I have a lot of metaphysical answers for that, but that's not the point of this podcast. Today, I want to help you with making friends because if there's one thing that I'm the most proud of, it's the quality of friendships that I have in my life. And I'm always seeking to improve that, partially because I think that's like the fruit of a well-lived life is the great relationships you have. Something I've learned a lot witnessing women that I adore later in their life is seeing how important the quality of their relationships were to them at that time. My grandmother passed at 89 years young, and she was independent. She was like really like defied aging in many ways, including brain stuff. Like she was just like, I refuse to age, right? But I also recognize like as someone who most of my life was so proud of her career and her career accomplishments, she really, towards the end of her life, once the career was done, um, her relationships were very important to her. And I've been watching the show Hacks on HBO Max. I'm a late adopter. The fourth season just finished, and I just started watching it. So I'm like halfway through season 4 because I just like fell right into it. I hated the first episode the first time I watched it. It was just like, I don't get this. I don't like their humor. But now I really appreciate the intergenerational friendship, but also witnessing like the way in which Deborah Vance, the main character, just allows her ego and her character defects, the ways she's like abrasive to other people to cause her terminal isolation. The only people around her are the people she pays to be around her. And that's not how I want to live the rest of my life, right? I want to have rich and robust relationships that inspire me to grow and fill my life with love and laughter. And like, I pulled a card before this episode just to see if there was any metaphysical guidance, and they said specifically to surround yourself with people who inspire you to grow, see you as wonderful, and bring light and laughter to your life. And I think that's so important to remember when pursuing friendship is like we're not. And I'm titling this because like I think once you hit the middle of your life, the lunchtime of life, we don't make friends the same way we once did. I think I used to have a lot of circumstantial friends. Like I would end up at school, making friends with people around me because you're around a lot of people. So you can kind of discern who's like the people who light you up and bring laughter to your life, right? Who see you as wonderful and who you can just have a good time with, right? So there's a lot more opportunity for that, like when you're in school, obviously, and then also all the way to workplaces. And I don't work in a traditional workplace. So I choose everyone I work with is someone I choose to work with, which is actually, as someone who so much like authority trauma and like who, I have a Mars and Capricorn. I'm best at being my own boss. And anyway, so like I'm really discerning about who I work with, and I have boundaries around what kind of clients I'll take for. I do a lot of pet sitting, but also like I actually haven't yet come into someone who's like come to aerobics classes and been real disruptive, actually. Like most of the time, people vibe in or vibe out of community, and that works well for me. Um, and I also like have, I will say, a thriving community life. I have several communities that I'm part of that are resources to me, and that I am a resource within, and I'm grateful for those communities. So I've also worked on developing community, which is another great way to make friends. So first and foremost, I think you've got to get yourself around people, right? So if you're just going to a workplace or like, like, right, like if you don't do a lot of third place things, you got to start doing third place things. Third place is like, right, it's not work, it's not home, it's third place. And third place can be online. And I have a whole episode about how to make friends digitally because I've actually actively made new friends during the quarantine part of the pandemic. Pandemic's ongoing, yeah, still prevalent. But now that like most people are not quarantining in the same way they once were, people are out and about more, right? So anyway, there's an episode about that. I'll link to it in the show notes. But I wanted to talk specifically about just like the behaviors that make friends and create ongoing friendship because I've been thinking about it a lot because I got this as a podcast question a few months ago and I've just been like brewing like what advice can I give? And so anyway, and I've been witnessing it happening in friendships that I've been pursuing. So first and foremost, you got to get to third places. So common interests are like one of the easier ways to make friends, right? So I go to a women's spiritual group every week. We do rituals and honor astrology and the moon and stuff that really lights me up, right? So if that lights up other people, I'm actually incredibly shocked at how many um like witchy people there are around me where I live, but because I live really rurally. I had way more access to making friends when I lived in New York City. Even in Los Angeles, there's just more third place activities. And you can really niche down in community because there's so many people in those places, right? So here I've been a little bit more, far more, I would say like just excited about I'll just say this. I didn't invent any of the communities I'm part of. I am just like excited to say yes to an invitation and more open-minded about the invitations I say yes to. The one thing I want to say about saying yes to things is to take a pause and consider your full body, like yes on things. And also, I have found a lot of resistance that comes up around things like, making plans with people or like going to a place. Like, I know that I feel better when I go to my groups, right? Like, I know that I feel better when in Al-Anon, they would say all the time, if you're thinking about going to a meeting, go to the meeting and think about it later because you'll feel better once you've gone to the meeting. And that is very true because there are tonic chemicals that our bodies and our brains get from being around other people. So I'm just going to encourage you to like look at meetup.com. Like that's a place where they have like affinity groups and meetings and stuff like that. Go to like a yoga studio and look at the flyers, right? Like go to coffee shops and look at the flyers, see what's out there and what's available and like take risks and go do a thing, right? Like I have friends who are in choir now, like grown up choir, and I think that's so cute and charming and like singing together is actually very trauma healing. So there's a lot you can do in third place places to like get introduced to people that are awesome and potential new friends for you. So that's my suggestion about like where and how to do it. But of course, like you pick up random friends all sorts of places. Like I meet people at the grocery store sometimes. Like I love to strike up a stranger conversation. It really helps me heal a lot of my social anxiety actually by like teaching myself through exposure that strangers are not scary, that strangers are just people. And, and most of them don't go anywhere, but like every now and again, there's a diamond in the rough and someone that like you can really make friends with. So I'll say that like that's been like my biggest source of new friends is community spaces and then like striking up conversations with folks out in the world. I think something that we don't think enough about is how similar making friends is to dating, especially later in life, because there's a moment of vulnerability that everyone encounters in a dating pursuit, right? Like somebody asked somebody out, right? Like somebody proposed, like, let's go get a coffee, let's go do this, right? The same is true with friendship. So, like, no relationship begins without vulnerability. And I want you, especially, I mean, I'm someone who's been incredibly wounded interpersonally and I have a lot of social trauma that I've recovering from, right? And I've been very bullied in the past. Like it has not been easy for your girl out in the world. And I was an only child. So like my again, that's where a lot of my like social anxiety comes from is just like non-exposure as a young person, which I know now how much alone time I really need to foster my creativity and what I can offer the world, and I love that. But it does, like, I do need human connection. I have noticed, like, I did this I was doing this like mood mapping um like late 2019, early 2020, before all the things happened, and I really noticed that like my mood directly correlated with how much human connection I had in a day. Because again, I work for myself primarily, so I can like go a long time without ever talking to anybody. I have to actually really work for it. And a human connection is very different than just like, hi. It's like, hi, how are you? And like settling in with a person. There was an article I read that talked about like the 8-minute connection, and like that's how long you need for the good tonic chemicals. And like truly you can have a good connection in like 5 to 8 minutes. You know what I mean? So like I am really working on more behaviors that foster and facilitate this connection stuff I'm talking about. I reach out to old friends all the time because you can't make old friends, and you got to stay in touch in order to like, continue being friends with people, right? And this is my favorite Hollywood definition. I learned this when I lived in LA. My favorite Hollywood definition, if you were friends with someone, which is like, can you text them right now? And I will say that's yes, and will they text you back? Because a lot of people who are like busy and like, going and doing, you know what I mean? Especially people in the industry, because like when you're in production for something, like all of your attention is on the production, especially like my director friends, because I think directors really work. Actors have more breaks, I think. Anyway, so right, like, I think I'm very forward about getting people's phone numbers, and I'm very willing to be vulnerable about using them. So like, right, striking up the, hey, do you want to go out and get coffee, or do you want to, I love going for a forest walk, or going out in nature. That's kind of my favorite activity. It's also what I do to potential first dates. Like if I'm doing a vibe check with someone I might want to date, we're going to go on a walk on a beach. Because to me, it's like a nice neutral place, and it's a good way to check a vibe. And I love walking on the beach, and I feel better once I do that. So it's like no real risk to me. It's like I'm having a nice walk on the beach, whether I like my company or not. Right. So there is that vulnerability point that you've got to do in order to have friends. Like, and a lot of people are just, I'm going to just call it out, a little too lazy to develop friends because they're just not willing to risk the vulnerability. And that is just something you pay for later on, right? So it's like there is work required to having a vibrant social life. You got to actually show up for it. Um, and also, a vibrant social life can be whatever it means to you, right? Like for me, I noticed a direct correlation to my mood, which is something like it really matters to me, like how good I feel. And so, like, again, getting into those behavior, and it's kind of crazy. Like people who love and adore me won't get on the phone with me all the time. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of hard to nail a lot of my friends down, especially the ones with kids. I have a ton of grace. I don't need to be in the ego mind of like, oh, I put in X amount of work to this friendship, and so therefore, like, at a certain point I don't offer a hangout as much. You know what I mean? Like I really test the waters, and if someone is like really hard to schedule, I'll give up for a while, and then I'll come back around, right? Like I try not to put my ego too much into it, because most of the time people aren't thinking of you. They're thinking of like what's right in front of them and what they have to handle, and if they are responsible for another human's life, that's a lot. So like I have a lot of grace for that, especially parents of toddlers. Oof, that's a lot of time. But I just think it's important to remember that like friendships take sustained effort on both sides, and really being willing to assess energetic uh equanimity. Is that the word I'm looking for? I don't know. I got a message like probably in an eclipse season, probably October 2023. I remember very distinctly, because it was like you need to really assess the energetic relationships you're having and like the energy balance. And so I really am mindful of like not being the one that always pours in energy, but I'm willing to be the one that like, initiates a conversation, because somebody's got to, or it'll never happen, right? And I don't like to lose my old friends. I really like to stay in contact with people. And as I have discussed many times on this podcast, I have many friends who have passed away. But because I have this habit of reaching out to people, like one of my friends, I think he passed from an overdose. It was either an overdose or suicide, but he passed last year. And I was so glad that I had that habit of reaching out to people because I had just talked to him like 6 weeks before. And we had like a really good conversation about his addiction and like his experience in the world. And I'm really, really glad we had that convo. And right. And it took risk on my part to be like, hey, do you want to hang out? And like we had a lovely Zoom and we had a great connection. And so like I felt more peace on my heart because I had been really present in that relationship, which was not like I met him. This was a person I met through a class because I took a class and we were both in the same class. And a lot of times, like you're in community or you're in classes with people, but you're not doing the one-on-one connecting dialogue stuff. So that is where like getting people's phone numbers and then taking the risk to reach out. Um, Most people, I think, find it flattering to be reached out to for friendship hang. And again, I try not to think too. I try to consider it, or I do consider it none of my business what other people think of me, right? And I think most of the time people are like just busy, if they don't get back to you. Um, Sometimes people are like, oh, I don't, yeah, I am busy, and like actually confirm that and say, like, I'm not making plans. And so, and actually, there was a person who I was like pursuing a friendship with because I thought we had a lot in common whose like response to wanting to hang out had been good the first time, and then the second time a few months later was like, oh, I'm busy, but like no like um confirmation or affirmation that I should reach out again and that we should try again. You know what I mean? It was just like, I'm busy, this is what's happening. So I have not pursued any further friendship. And I think like there's a lot of like intuition and reading between the lines on things, and like I think our insecurities can be far louder than our intuition most of our lives. And like a lot of the work of developing your intuition is self-trust and like also getting the brain weasels out of the way. But I think there is something to like, this is another thing I put on my list of making friends is like doing like reassurance and attention. So most people, it's kind of wild, actually. I'm constantly surprised at how much people really do need and value reassurance, especially in friendship. But like this is something I do. Like if I were on a date with somebody, and I had a great time, I would, my typical like quote unquote rule, and of course no rules are real, but all the rules are made up and no one's keeping score, right? But like my typical rule is like the next day I'm going to send a reassuring text that I enjoyed spending time with them and want to see them again. Whether I'm the girl or the boy in the relationship does not matter. Like, I think everyone deserves pursuit and attention and reassurance. Those are actual, very neutral human needs. And it can help reassure someone else's brain weasels if the brain weasels are popping up, right? I do the same thing with friendships. So if I've had a great time with someone, especially a newer friend, I'm going to say in a text message either later that day or the next day, I had such a great time with you. And I don't like, to me, I think like people who are really stuck in their ego are going to be like, oh, I can't give all that away. Who cares? You know what I mean? Like, I am not here to play it cool. I am here to play it warm and hot. And if I feel hot and excited about someone, I'm going to say, oh my God, what a great time. Right. Because I think people need it. And like, I think that's okay to need those things. And I think we have like this weird culture that pathologizes a need for attention, but it's actually a neutral human need that like not everyone needs as much attention as other people. But people still need it and they need reassurance. And I think that's okay. And that's part of like developing a friendship. I think it's just reminding people, oh, you matter. This time mattered. I had a good time, especially in a newer friendship. Like I'll do that. And even it's funny too. I learn a lot from my ongoing friendship with Rachel, who I've been friends with now for 23 years and in person 20 years. Like, but like we still reassure each other. Like we're doing more lately, I think, to like miss each other or like to say I miss you and to like send voice notes and that kind of thing. Cause I think honestly, like as you go through friendships and you lose so many friendships for reasons, seasons, or lifetimes, right? Like, or some friendships are for a reason, some for a season, some for a lifetime, right? And like, we don't know how long our lifetimes get to be. And when you really think about the time you get to spend with the people you love, it's just these little chunks, And I think there was an interesting thing I saw about parenting, which just like kind of showed how much time you spend with your kids, like from age 0 to 18, and then like after that. And it like greatly, I mean, greatly reduces, right? And so, and I think honestly, the relationship you have with your kids later in life is your evaluation on your parenting. And success in parenting, I read, is having adult children who take responsibility and who want to have a relationship with you. And that is a really different mindset towards parenting compared to the parenting I had and the parenting a lot of other people had. So I think as we're like healing from that, it's like we want to be the change we want to see in the world, to cite an important cliche. But like, right, like, so showing up like full hearted with the people that you care about really matters. I don't want to die and have my friends wonder if I liked them. You know what I mean? Like, anyway, and I'll say this, like, if I'm still friends with you on Facebook, I still like you. You know what I mean? Like, I'll say that. Like, I will unfriend someone, I'll block somebody. Like, I had an old boss who I would still be friends with, like at least in a like in a tangential, like see you for coffee every few years kind of way, who like said some really hurtful things to me, like in this big internet pylon, and I haven't forgotten that, and I won't forget it. You know what I mean? Like, and like again, I have a Scorpio moon, and Scorpio is like kind of a grudge holding. There are a few signs that hold grudges in the zodiac, and Scorpio is one of them. And I don't hold grudges to like hurt myself over and over again with them. I like, I can forgive and release, but I won't forget, and I won't allow intimacy with people who like will openly talk shit about me on the internet, And again, about things that are none of my business is I don't, if it's not said to me directly, it remains unsaid. Right. So like there's those two things, right? And I'm pretty good, I think, about sniffing out mean girls now in a way that I was not before. I really, gosh, when was it? So I was on this Savage Love podcast, which is Dan Savage's podcast. It's like episode like 80 something. I think it might be episode 88. And he called me a lesbian swirling and lesbian psychodrama, which I was at the time. And I wanted to develop a bionic bullshit detector because his mom had just died, and he said that's what she taught him. And I was like, I need to learn this. And so that's what we talked about. And I will say sometimes just setting an intention is all you need to do to get the ball rolling. So here's friendship advice: set the intention that you're making more friends, and that will get the ball rolling in your life. Somehow, I developed a pretty bionic bullshit detector. And there are people who, like, I just have the spidey sense and I trust my intuition now. And I take a beat and I listen to my intuition about people. And my intuition is sassy. And, like, they will be like, you thought so and so was a lifetime friend, and like laughed at me. I heard laughter in there when someone, like, when some community stuff fell out and like people were being revealed about who they are. I think it's really interesting, like in community, that like this just came up in an in-person community. Like there's like a whole subtext of stories and things that I did not know was going on that had to do with a different community. Like there's lots of spokes off of like this one main community I'm in, and it had to do with a conflict within another community that I had nothing to do with. And but it's affecting people wanting to come to the other community, and I'm to the one that I go to, and I'm like, wow, I didn't even know about any of this stuff because I am so disinterested in gossip. I think people just like don't loop me in. Things like that. But I do need to, I want to be made aware of things that are affecting like other community things, right? So it's so interesting like how like checked out I am, because like I'm just not, I don't think I'm that fun to gossip with anymore. I think I used to be. But anyway, I like to talk about information and ideas, and I like to share information about people when it's relevant and helpful. Like, oh, can we please pray for this person who has cancer? You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. Anyway, I have talked a lot about, and I'm actually very proud of this series that I've been doing on my Patreon page. Patreon, patreon.com/FKDP, which stands for Fat Kid Dance Party, which is my aerobics class for anyone who feels left behind by mainstream fitness. If you've ever been called too much, too fat, or felt too awkward to dance, mine is the supportive class for you. It's an incredible community. I actually really love it. After all the Zoom aerobics classes, we have a self-care check-in, which I find to be just like one of the most valuable ways to get to know people and to see their growth and progress over time has been so cool. And I use my Patreon page for like bonus content. So if you're someone who loves the solo episodes of my podcast, I have this whole series called Conflict and Community, because I got a lot of questions about navigating conflict and community, and I didn't have enough clear answers to do a podcast episode. But I was like, I can be vulnerable and just share stories of like what I'm going through and how I'm experiencing it. And so I've done like 4 episodes of that already over there. And then there's also like other episodes about stuff I don't share publicly. My coming out story, my first love story, Yeah, there's a lot of fun like bonus podcast episodes over there. So if you like the solo stuff, go to the Patreon. That's going to be full of joy and tea if you care for the joy and the tea. Um, let's see. And also you can make friends. There's a great Discord and this is like one of the things that I consider one of the greatest aspirations I have for my aerobics class, which is that people make friends in aerobics class and go do things with those friends. And that has already happened with some of the Seattle people. And it wasn't even because they met in a Seattle class. They actually had never met in an in-person class. They just like met in a Zoom class, linked up, and then went and did stuff on their own. So I'm like thrilled. I was thrilled to hear that because they told me that when I did have an in-person class. I only did one in-person Seattle class this year, and they both came to that and they shared that they had made friends from class. So anyway, I propose come dance with me, make friends that way, and also all these other things that I have shared with you. Um, I also think like sometimes when you want to make new friends, you can like literally just ask your friends to set you up with people who are potentially good friends, like good new friends for you. And like also trust that it takes a while and it feels kind of awkward and like lonely, especially when you move to a new place, making new friends. Like it's just part of it. I think it really takes a year to feel like you've really moved somewhere and you have to be there for a year for that to really land. And also, I would say it takes really 5 years to really like be somewhere, you know? That's what I've noticed for me, having moved across the country a couple of times and moved both with and without having made friends there before. One of the best choices I made when I moved from New York to LA, my partner had really lobbied me to move to LA with her. And she let me pick which neighborhood we lived in. And so I chose the neighborhood where we had the most established friendships. And that made all the difference because it just like kind of gave us like a social circle already. And then, you just kind of vibe in. These were people like I knew from conferences I'd gone to or like festivals and things like that. Just people I enjoyed being around already and or friends from New York who had already moved to LA, which was pretty common. The first year I lived in LA, almost everyone I met had a 917 phone number, which is a Brooklyn area code. So anyway, it's just funny. And now I live up here and I'm like one of the only people with an LA number. And that's also very charming and unique. And it's just been so weird to live up in the woods and like have really reoriented my way out of city living because I just don't think it suits me. And I do really love living in the woods. And I'm also just delighted and surprised at how many people that I have stuff in common with out here. And I have a lot of intergenerational friendships. I don't have a ton of queer friends who are around my age. I consider my age to be someone I could have gone to high school with. Like that to me is like my age. So that's like what, like a 7 year range or so. But whatever. Intergenerational friendships are great. I want to always be curious and expanding my mind. And having younger and younger friends, I think really actually does help you stay in a more youthful mindset. Um, and let's get into like more about making friends. Okay, so um, the book How to Win Friends and Influence People, I've probably mentioned on this podcast a billion times. It's so good. And it really should be called How to Shave Off Your Rough Spots so the people you love know you love them. And someone suggested that I should write that book. And I'm like, maybe I will. But I have really worked on shaving off my rough spots. And I have a whole episode about overcoming defensiveness, which, like, again, is like your ego getting in the way of your intimacies with other people. And I never want to be that person again where, like, I'm so afraid that, like, I need to make the world safe around me. Instead, I like to carry my own safety with me and like know and trust my discernment around the people I spend time with. If I don't feel safe around someone, I'm not going to pursue intimacy with them. And a lot of the ways that How to Win Friends and Influence People teaches you to interact with people are just ways of reassuring their safety. Um, I also think people just get really in their heads about like, oh, they wouldn't worry about this, blah blah blah. You never know what's going on. It's always better, I think, to reassure people and give them good attention. I like to learn really early on in a friendship what someone's love language is. And if they don't know, it's a good conversation to have anyway, because then I know like what's like if someone's a gifts love language person, then I'm going to look for gifts for that person, right? Like bring them a little something. If someone's like a quality time person, then I know my phone is away when I mean, in general, you want your phone to be away when you're hanging out with people, but some people are very like millennial in Hangouts and want to Google stuff and stuff like that. So I think everyone has different phone vibes, but there are certain people where I'm just gonna have the phone away because like this attention is what you're gonna feel loved by, you know? If someone's an acts of service person, I might ask them what I can do. I might take a lot of initiative at their house, and like, do the dishes or pick stuff up. Some people really don't like it when you do that kind of stuff. And I think like I try to test that vibe and understand like, just customize. Like everyone is worthy of a customized relationship with me. I also really like the book Set Boundaries, Find Peace. That's by Nedra Tawwab. That's a really good book because I think a lot of us are socialized to be people pleasers and overextend in friendships and with the wrong people. And I think a lot of making lasting, good, nurturing friendships, the friendships that light you up, the friendships where people see you as wonderful, that's about discernment and like connecting to the right people. And also trusting that like it kind of takes a while to build a real friendship and it's worth the effort for you and for the other people to build that effort or to build that friendship. I think something that so like this idea of the nuclear family is a construct. We're meant to live in villages. We're meant to have our needs met through a myriad of people. It's not just like the one person we marry is not supposed to meet all of our intimacy needs. And in fact, we're attracted to our opposites. So usually those people are not interested in all the same things as us. So it's actually really important for us to have multiple friendships that fill those needs. And that way, I think that's how you get like a rich and rewarding life. Cultural events. I want to mention this too, because I think if you're a regular listener to this podcast, I'm very obsessed with the things that we do that create a better quality of life. And I just read a statistic that if you go to 6 or more cultural events per year, so we're talking concerts, theater, museums, like stuff and things that you enjoy, right? Like going out and one of my favorite things is, especially this time of year, is like light shows in the dark, like cool light up sculptural thingies that you can wander through. I love that kind of stuff. Um, Doing 6 or more of those things a year, like tax on a lot of quality of life and time in your life. Like you live a lot longer and have a higher quality of life by doing those things. And that's another great way to meet people and make friends. And also a cool activity to do with a friend. One of my friends around here went to one of those little light sculpture things with me, right? Like, so I have my like list of people I can do weird local cultural things with. Okay. Compliments versus complaints. Woo. I do a lot of studying of leadership and social skills and things like that. And one of the most successful people I've ever gotten to take a seminar with was saying, like, he's like, I want to be in like everyone's top 5 people. He's like, what I've learned, and he's real old, so he's had a lot of experience with people, right? Like he has really good relationships. So this is why I'm learning from him, right? He's very rich. And he runs a people business. So he said, he's like, everyone knows what their flaws are. Everyone knows. Even if they're not conscious of it, they know what their flaws are. But what I do is I focus on, like, even if they're screwing up 9 out of 10 things, I'm going to focus on the one thing they're not screwing up. And that's where my focus is. And that's what builds people up. And it's actually really true. A lot of the people skills books talk about this, like focusing on people's strengths. Leadership books talk about this too. Strengths-based approach, right? And it's so funny because I think a lot of us like, and I'll say, I'm going to call myself out. This is something I definitely did in previous long-term relationships. I will never do again, which is to focus on flaws as though that's helpful. What is helpful is focusing on where people are getting it right and then like doing your best to kind of like come up under weaknesses and like support them yourself. You know what I mean? Instead of, and while having good boundaries, again, set boundaries, find peace. Like, you can't fix other people. You also like can't have fun for other people. You can really only show them what it looks like to have fun. That's one of the most interesting things in the world is I was certainly raised to think that I could control other people's feelings and control the way they acted because that's how people treated me with a lot of control and authority. And that is not true. Everyone is a volunteer. Everyone is a volunteer. All of your employees are volunteers. Everyone who is a friend in your life is a volunteer. Your children are volunteers. And if your children aren't talking to you, it probably means they don't feel safe with you. I was no contact with both of my parents in my 20s, much of that time, like very little contact. No contact for life. This is before people said no contact. This is before we had social media and we were talking about this. And I didn't feel safe with either of them. And now I've really worked hard to feel safe within myself in order to have a relationship with my mother. And I will also say, like, I love her dearly, but like she doesn't, um, I'm not going to talk shit about my mother. But I will say, like, I have to work really hard to just breathe and just release. And she's actually gotten way less judgy than she used to be. She used to be really judgy and bossy with me, and now she is not. And I'm grateful for that. So, but I will also say it's taken me a lot of work to be able to feel loved without needing to feel understood. But when you take the effort to understand someone and to get to know them and to get to know like what makes them feel loved, that's where you can really like fast track intimacy. And I'm not saying fast track intimacy meaning like love bombing or anything like that. I just mean like really helping yourself feel like a safe person and not complaining to people and not picking up their flaws or anything like that. That's not my business. You know what I mean? Like if I'm someone's coach, if I'm someone's psychic, if I'm someone's counselor, that's different. That's when they're asking me for feedback, right? I keep my complaining as much as possible to like my therapist and my coach, and that's where I leave it. I do complain sometimes. Like there's certain little rants I have, like why is oat milk more expensive than dairy? Why? That doesn't make any sense to me. I think it's one of the rudest things in this current economy. Oats do not cost more than cows. Anyway, um, it's so bonkers to me that non-dairy milk costs more than dairy at a coffee shop, in a store. I don't know. Anyway, but see, okay, see there, I complained. I complained just a little bit on this podcast, and that's it. But again, I don't think people go to your podcast if you complain all the time. So I'm gonna wrap it back up. Okay. We talked about trusting your instincts. We talked about your full body yes. Again, if it's not a full body yes, it's a no. And also remembering that like some behaviors feel better after, right? Like when I go to my community groups, even if I don't feel like it, even if I'm dragging, or if I follow through on plans with a friend instead of canceling. And I know sometimes we all like are hoping someone's going to cancel. That's very real. But like, just remembering that like showing up to friendship is how you build friendship. Like if you don't ever actually follow through with plans, people aren't going to make plans with you. And simultaneously having tons of grace. I meet everyone with the amount of grace that I want to be met with, and in fact, probably tons more. Because like if someone needs to reschedule for body reasons or um physical reasons, all the normal things that come up, it's all good. You know what I mean? Like it's again, like I try not to cancel. But then I also have so much grace for other people canceling. And I too cancel sometimes. Like this weekend I got my schedule just got all out of order. I just genuinely thought that the pet sit that I was at was going to end on Sunday, and it ended on Saturday. So I had made some plans for Saturday that like there was no way I was going to be able to follow through on them. So we've rescheduled. It's fine. But this was a new friend who like I really worked at. This is one of the friendships I was like working on, like, and I was witnessing myself as I was working on it, being like, what am I doing in this friendship? So date your friends is really my advice. It's like, if you want to have like good social life, you just got to be mindful of people, and that's part of it. And I think a lot of people, I don't know, a lot of us are just raised by real narcissistic boomers and like who did not have good people skills, and we have to go out and learn our people skills on the streets. And so I'm out there knowing that like my quality of friendships and life is like in hindsight everything in my life, and like the other stuff I look forward to lots of ways to be like wealthy in this lifetime, but I really think like quality relationships and like quality mental and physical health are the things that are like the chef's kiss on life, and that um everything else is just bonus, right? Okay. Self-trust, so important. Trust yourself, trust your instincts. Um It's funny. There was a mean girl who really showed herself out to be a mean girl in one of my communities who kept inviting me to hang out. And I kept not having, like, I kept not wanting to. Is really what it was. It's like I both also didn't want to like she lived pretty far away and I like didn't want to take the trip for one-on-one, but I was fine to see her in community because there are people I can be in community with that like I would never spend one-on-one time with, right? But I value the community so much. And so it was interesting, like she had pursued me a couple of times and then she said something real mean about me not making plans. And I was like, oh. And then I started really seeing her for who she was. And then she started really showing herself out. So anyway, it's just really good to remember that like sometimes like when you're like feeling hesitant about something and like not wanting to hang out with someone, that's like the pause to listen to the intuition to tell you this is not someone who is going to be a good friendship match for you. Um, okay. I think that's it. I think that's what we've done today. I hope that this has inspired you to try to make new friends because I think you deserve and you haven't yet met everyone you will love. And you deserve to have a great and robust friendship life and people who see you as wonderful and see you throughout your life as wonderful and get to hang and enjoy and do all the good things. I will say this in friend stuff, I tend to prioritize things where we can talk. Because most of my friends, like if it's a good friendship for me, it's like sparky conversation. And I really enjoy that and honor that. Um, and if you have other questions about how to build community, how to make community, how to find community, how to build friendships, and really anything else, please send me an email, fatkiddanceparty@gmail.com. I love getting questions for the podcast. Also, I do offer one-on-one sessions. I do psychic readings and Akashic records readings, things that can like really get into your soul and what your soul wants to learn. And I can help identify obstacles to friendships and relationships that are coming up for you that we're always too close to the trees to see the forest, right? So that's something that I can really help with. In addition to business brainstorm sessions or Reiki sessions, Reiki helps alleviate stress, anxiety, depression, and pain, and restore balance. So those are offerings I have one-on-one, which is also in a link in the show notes, in addition to all the ways that you can support the podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. Our major assets that we all have are our time, treasure, and our talent. And so I appreciate your time connecting. And if you are a supporter of the podcast, thank you from the bottom of my heart for helping me make this art. It really matters to me. I'm really excited and grateful to get to do this. And I adore you. Thanks for being here. Bye, everybody.